Right, we're going to do a find minimum. Let's have a look at the questions. The question says, a horse race produced the set of results shown below. The names and times are held as two lists. So I've got two arrays. I've got an array called name and I've got an array called time. These are parallel arrays. I've got two arrays that are separate, but they kind of belong together. The data that's inside them has a relationship. So at element 0 in name I have Mr. McGee, and at element 0 in time I've got 8:15. So although these data structures would be two separate things inside your program, you know that Mr. McGee's time in the race was 8:15. So we've got name, we've got time, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, they've got 5 elements and both of them 0 to 4. So the problem that we've got to solve is use pseudocode to design an algorithm that would store the time of the winning horse in the variable fastest. Now please watch this, because for some reason people go fastest and what they think is that it's actually a find max without really thinking about it. That when you run a race, the person who comes in first is the person who's got the quickest time, and that would be the person with the slowest time. So in this instance, Fizzy Lizzy is the fastest and they came in first in the race. Right, so we're going to start our find min. Now your find max and your find min both start the same way. When I look at the first element in my array, remember I'm ignoring name, I'm just looking at time. When I look at the first element in my array, it says 8:15. At this point I've not looked at any other time, so that there is my fastest time. That's my quickest. So what I do is I write set, and what I would do is I would write min time, because what we want to do is we want to say it's the minimum and it's the time, and I want to say 2 and then I write time for my array at 0. Now this is actually wrong, because this is what we would normally do, but what you've got to do, the same way time is the name of my array, I've got to be very careful when it says use the variable down here. If I don't use that fastest, then what's actually happening is I'm going to lose a mark, and that's a daft mark to write, because I know that I'm going to write my min exact, but if I don't write the fastest instead of min time, I'm going to lose it. So please make sure that you check your variables. So I'm going to change that to fastest. Right, so set my fastest to the first time. Now what I need to do is set up my for counter to go through my array. Now I know how many elements are in my array. Just a wee reminder that when you do a find min or a find max, I've already looked at the first one. I don't need to look at it again. So instead of my for counter starting at 0, my for counter actually starts at position 1. So because I'm going to compare it with position 1. Now I know how many items I've got in my array. I've got 5 items, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for counter from 1 to 4, do. So go through the 4 items. So now I need to do the comparison. So to do my comparison, we know it's an if statement. So if fastest is greater than the time at counter, do. So what am I saying here? Come back over, keep looking back at your list, and then that'll help you be able to work it out. So if this is bigger than this, what is it I want to do? Well, I want this to be my new fastest. So in the next line, set fastest to time at counter. And then it's at end if and end for. Now at this point we've not got that's it finished. It doesn't say that it wants you to output anything, it doesn't say anything like that, but what I want to show you how to do is, what if it wanted you to display the name as well as the time, right? So what if it wanted you to take it a wee bit further? So I would write it like this. I'm going to just copy this code and put it underneath, because this is how we make it a bit harder. In order, if Fizzy Lizzy is the fastest over here, well, I know that Fizzy Lizzy matches up with 708. And I know where 708 is because it's the position in my array. So what we need to do is, up as well as set fastest to, set element to 0. And then down here, when it's the fastest, set element to counter. And then we come underneath, right? So what I've said is, element 0, my index is 0, that's the fastest at this point. When I find one that's faster, make that element my new fastest element. So then if I wanted to print something out, I just use my send, open brackets, in fact let's not do that, let's do name at element ampersand to say concatenate is the fastest horse with the time ampersand, and then do fastest to display. I know that I've done capital some places and some others and not. That there is how we would make your find min or your find max just that wee bit more meaningful to what you want it to do, and sometimes you will be asked to do something like that in your exam.